Greetings, truth seekers, paradigm busters, new world orders, civil disobedience, freedom fighters, free thinkers, higher mammals, good people of all types. How's it going? My name is Michael Parker, and welcome to the 27th episode of the Electric Pyramid, coming to you as always from an undisclosed location somewhere in Hollywood, California, North America, planet Earth, third stone from the sun, solar system, the galaxy. You are here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful show planned for you tonight. Our good friend Stefan Verstappen will be joining us in just a few moments. And this will be Stefan's second visit to the pyramid. And we're very pleased that he is returning and looking forward to that. My co-pilot, Joe Kiernan, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. And yourself?
Doing good, man. Hey, I wanted to get something off my chest before we get into our deeper conversation. Obviously, I live in the Los Angeles area and work in the entertainment business. And you would think, judging from social media, and if you turn on a television set here in Los Angeles, you would think that we were spinning directly into the sun. This Sony hack has got people absolutely losing their minds. And
tell me about it, because I'm on the outside looking in, and I hear a little bit about it, but I know you're in the heart of Hollywood.
Yes.
Is it really affecting things? Is it is it the talk of the town?
It is the talk of the town. Now let me back up a little bit. I understand that some people outside of LA, this might not be as big a deal, but here in town, it's a huge deal. And what this is about is, at least on the surface, is that there was going to be a film that was going to come out on Christmas Day. And the film was starring Seth Rogen, James Franco. It's a film called The Interview. And ostensibly, it is about two wacky, happy-go-lucky journalists who are going to Korea, and the CIA taps them to assassinate Kim Jong-un.
Right.
And like his father, those two guys are, always a barrel of laughs. And apparently, if we are to believe the official story, he took great umbrage at this and has sicked some hackers onto the company Sony, and they have taken just terabytes of data, dropped it all over the cyber landscape. It's been incredibly embarrassing to Sony.
Yeah.
It culminated in Sony having to cancel the release of this film because there were seeming to be threats to theaters if the film was going to be played. Now,
has that ever happened before, Michael?
Well,
where a studio has shelved the film so close to a release date?
Well, they've postponed films before. And here's the thing to me, that first of all, when I first heard about this film months ago, I thought, wow, that is...
What did you think the first time you heard what that movie was about?
I thought it was a lousy idea. And I thought it was incredibly unfunny. And honestly, I thought shame on these guys.
I couldn't believe it the first time when I knew what the story was about. Number one, I said, I recall watching the first time I saw the trailer, I remember saying, wow, I wonder how he's going to react to know this movie was made about him. Well, and secondly, I said, I can't believe, number one, that they had this idea, but that this idea was pitched to people. Someone agreed that this was a good idea to make this film and laid money out for this.
Absolutely, Joe.
So, I don't want to just chalk it up to these two writers and filmmakers. They are, right? Did they make it together, the two?
I don't know
that.
Listen, I don't know who originally came up with the idea. Right now, the screenwriters kind of taking a lot of the blame.
Idea.
Right? I think it's an awful idea. I thought it was a stupid idea, and I thought it was an idea that really just kind of...
I just know the government and or CIA, FBI, whatever agency has stepped in at other times during filmmaking processes in the past, saying, that might be a security issue, or that might be a matter of national security. This one, I'm a little shocked. Someone didn't say, you know, that's just going to cause a lot of attention. Can it be a false name? You know, someone to give the impression that it's the leader of North Korea. Do we necessarily have to be specifically about him? You know?
No, of course. And
I was really shocked about how it came about this way. I thought it was just me for a little while that found it odd.
No, I think it's incredibly smug, incredibly cocky, and poorly thought out. And
definitely some poor acting, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was a bad idea. But I want to take it farther than this. So now all these creative types, and I consider myself a creative type. I have a lot of friends who are in the industry and in the music industry as well. And all these people are wanting to jump on Sony and say, you guys are cowards for pulling the films. This is a freedom of speech thing.
Well, they did pull it it was a rather swift removal, wasn't it?
Well, let me go further with this. Yes, they did. And, you know, all these people are wanting to jump on Sony about this and say that they were cowards down, blah, blah, blah. And then a lot of people are trying to say that this is a freedom of speech issue. Guess what? It's not. It's not a freedom of speech issue. Sony is a company. Sony is not the American government. Right. Sony can listen, it was Sony's idea to make the film, no matter how ill-advised and poorly thought out it was, and it is their property. They can therefore go forward and do whatever they want to do. And if they want to pull the film, that is their right. And listen, that was their decision. It was the right decision because, listen, regardless of who these hacks come from, and I'm going to take it a step further, I'm not even sure it came from North Korea. I think that's the obvious candidate. But I'm reading the work of a bunch of other white hat hackers on the internet. And a lot of them are saying, you know what, this may not be the work of North Korea. And they give some pretty good reasons for why that is. But regardless of who actually originated these hacks on Sony, when you make threats that you are going to bomb movie theaters,
right?
Even if these threats are not really credible, listen, if I'm Sony and I've got an army of lawyers, what are they going to say? Hey, listen, guess what? If you show this film and somebody, you know, even falls down and, you know, sprains an ankle, anything on your watch, knowing that something had been said about this film and threats of, listen, you can't do it. It's a simple business decision. You've already made an incredibly bad decision by wanting to put out this film. The only decision now that you can make that is a logical business decision is not to have the film go into studios because you could be sued into oblivion if anything goes wrong. So, to me, all these people that are saying that this is a freedom of speech issue, guess what? You missed the boat, man. There are plenty of important freedom of speech issues out there that you could take umbrage about. This is not one of them. Now, the next level of this is this may not even be coming from North Korea. And the idea that this so infuriated North Korea that they would do this, you know, maybe so. I mean, listen, the little guy, Kim Jong-un, he's certainly not stable. His father was insane. Sure, he's probably
no doubt about that. Yeah,
he's probably irritated and certainly could work up enough money to pay some hackers to do this. But you know what? There's also the possibility that this is someone related to Sony that is possibly disgruntled. So my point is like, listen, right now we don't know enough about who did this to say it was definitely North Korea. Second of all, I heard talk that, well, you know what, maybe Obama and our government needs to jump in and do something. Guess what? We don't. Because right now, until we know who did this, the last thing we need to do is, you know, do Sony's dishes for them. Sony made the decision to make this crap film, and it blew up in their face, and it has humiliated them, embarrassed them. It has turned over the social security numbers and private emails of many of their employees.
Wow.
And you know what? It's their situation to deal with. So,
right.
That's a different story than a freedom of speech issue. And it's just today when I was looking at a lot of my fellow creative people just bemoaning the fact that Sony would do this, I was I couldn't believe it because to me, it's the only logical business move to make. You pull the film, simple as that. And if you don't work for Sony or you're not involved with that company, then really, I don't know what big a stake you have in this already. And I don't know how many people are really going to go see this film anyway. I've got nothing against Seth Rogen or James Franco. I've laughed at a lot of their movies, but this just sounded like a bad idea from the get-go. To me, it screamed blowback from the very first second I heard about it. So I'm not surprised. And, I don't know what happens going forward. Another interesting thing I read is that George Clooney and his lawyer had tried to put a petition around town in Hollywood with all the heavy hitters for them to sign and stand with Sony. And guess what? No one would sign it because everybody in this town is scared to death that they will be the next ones in the crosshairs of some hackers. So, wow. Yeah, it's they're afraid that.
Now, help me out here because what I did was I saw some of the original hacking when it had happened.
Yeah,
the first day, and then I really didn't get to see much of the press. But in the beginning, I thought it was something related to Angelina Jolie and her film.
No, Angelina Jolie was part of the discussion because one of the, I don't remember if it was the president or what her title is, co-CEO or something. This Amy Pascal lady, I think is her name. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she had made some disparaging, or maybe it was the other guy, had made some disparaging remarks about Angelina Jolie. So she was in the conversation.
Okay.
And,
like I said, it was just that first day, and I know it was all just falling apart right then, but I didn't really get filled in on it.
One thing that the hackers did do that was pretty genius, and Clooney said the same thing about it, was that the first thing they did was just embarrass the heck out of everybody so that nobody wanted to stand with Sony because they had all of these emails and all of these passages where people at Sony, at the head of Sony, had made these disparaging remarks about various actors and actresses, and the truth of the matter is probably it was all true. And, they'd made remarks, racist remarks about Obama. So it just embarrassed the company, big time. So then after that, nobody wants to stand with them. But to me, and Clooney and these other folks are saying, oh my God, we stand in a new age when, we need to take this seriously. Hey, listen,
That's cyber terrorism right there.
It's cyber terrorism, but guess what? This is the 21st century and companies get hacked every single day and you never hear about it. It's not until it is
Could it be someone inside Sony?
Well, I think it certainly could be, or someone related to Sony. And if you start reading deeper on what some hackers are saying, white hat hackers, which are the good guys, what they say about it is like this has all the hallmarks of being someone related to Sony and not originating from North Korea. So I don't know, I don't know who did it. But I don't think that it is as big a deal as people are making it out to be. Mm-hmm. I think in a couple of months, this will be a non-issue. Right now, it's got this town on fire. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's freaking out about it. But I don't think that it's going to. I don't think it's going to have a long-term effect. I don't think it's going to have this chilling effect that something like 9/11 did. I mean, we've already given away most of our rights and freedoms in the wake of that. So this pales in comparison. I think it's just Hollywood kind of being spineless and being overly dramatic about something. So we'll wait and see. But I had to get that off my chest because, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a freedom of speech issue. This is a business. This is a company that has a property that can make its own decisions about the future of it, and is, that's my take on it.
No, that's really the truth of the matter. I mean, it's just because the company is just so in the public eye. It's common entertainment for everyone. They feel there's an association. There's the attachment. Right?
That's true. And James Franco is the kind of guy that the internet loves because he's kind of edgy, and this film would be kind of edgy. So I think a lot of people that aren't really paying attention to that many real issues have latched onto this, thinking that they're keeping up with current events, and I don't think this is really that big a story.
Well, my fear with it was that they were really what they were doing and who they were talking about was a a shocking topic. And I'm sure these guys did a few things that were going to be real shock and awe in the movie, that were going to be embarrassing or very nerve wracking when thinking about the leader over there. Yes. And my goodness, I think it reminds me of when there was a gentleman I had worked with, and he was from Kazakhstan. And someone told him, and it was such a bad idea, I wish I could have stopped him. Someone told him that he should watch the movie Borat.
Oh boy!
And it really hit home with him. It obviously wasn't from his nation, but they were neighboring countries that he was talking about, and he knew these people. He took great offense to it, and I tell you, I think if given the opportunity, he would like to have killed that actor. He was that upset, and I was going to say, I can't even imagine how upset this guy's going to be when he sees it. It reminded me very much of that. So I was very nervous to see how this movie was going to come out. I wasn't expecting it to be, pulled like that. But hey, it's just more viewers for Angelina Jolie's movie. I believe they had the same release date.
You're probably right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't want to get off on that too long, and we actually have more important things to discuss, but I wanted to put that out there because I am in the entertainment business. Out here, this is the talk of the town. I thoroughly disagree with the slant on a lot of what people are saying about it, but that's that. So moving on to more important issues, tonight we welcome the return of our good friend Stefan Verstappen. He is a Canadian writer, a researcher. He's a world traveler. He's the author of 6 books, including the 36 Strategies of Ancient China and the Art of Urban Survival, which is what we discussed the last time he was on the show. Stefan's a really interesting guy. He's an artist. He's a martial arts expert. He's a world traveler, just an all-around kind of Renaissance guy. And tonight what we're going to talk about, and I think really the way that I first found out about Stefan was what we're going to be discussing tonight, which is this idea that, mankind and civilization has a cycle. And it is a cycle which we ascend from primitive civilization into a more polished and polite civilization. We make some money, we do things right, we govern ourselves, we treat each other well, we get greedy, we have chaos, and then we have to start all over. And if you've listened to this show at all, we've talked a lot about ancient civilizations and the idea that perhaps there were civilizations that in ancient history may have existed that we don't have a lot of information about. Well, we're not going to sort that out tonight, but what we are going to talk about that is without doubt is that historical cycles do occur, and the ancient Chinese were a good example of the first people who had a excellent history of the ups and downs of their dynastic rulers. And I think without further ado, let's just invite Stefan on and have him explain some of this. Stefan, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Michael.
Greetings. I'm sorry I got off on that Sony rant so much. I've had too much coffee and I was kind of irked about
it. No problem. Hey, what do you do in the entertainment business there in LA?
Well, I've worked on various television shows. I used to work in the music business, and I've worked behind the scenes on several reality shows. So, and my wife works for SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild. So, I mean, I've been here in this town going on 20 plus years, and I've worked, like I say, in music. I've worked in new media. I've worked in television, and a lot of our friends are also in that world. So, a lot of the social media that I see is people talking about these various aspects of the entertainment business.
Yeah, interesting. No, I went through 2 years of pitch meetings in LA myself.
Well, then you and I need to talk because I would love to hear how that went. I have tried to pitch shows, and it's a difficult thing, and I'm sure, or I'm guessing, that the projects that you were pitching were probably worthy.
Well, who knows? It's I put a script up on Mandy's. I was looking for an instructional video, and I got some well-known producers that said, "No, this is going to be a great TV show," and so go to these pitch meetings, and then so you don't want to say no. Like, it wasn't my intention to do that. I was really looking for an instructional video to be made and just to get some funding, like 10, 15, 20,000 bucks to make it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, it's a TV series, and we've got the people. So, well, go and meet with these guys. Will you come and meet with these guys and, and sign a short-term agreement? And I said, okay, sure, I'll go and meet them. Why would you say no, right?
Right.
Oh, you could have been a writer for a television series and you didn't even go to the meeting. What an idiot. So of course you have to say yes. So then it was this meeting, and then, well, we're waiting to get back to. Meantime, there's another meeting. Can you go to that one? So I did that for like two years, up and down LA. And then it became like, it's so bizarre there. It's like a David Lynch movie, LA.
Absolutely.
It's spooky. It's bizarro world. I mean, it's, on the one hand, it's beautiful, like the scenery and the palm trees and the beaches and it's wonderful. And on the other hand, it's like it's surreal. And I ended up feeling like William Holden in Sunset Strip. Like where you find yourself in some strange Hollywood mansion with some somebody that used to be something in show business, and you're in their house with them, and you're pitching them a script idea, and it's all creepy. Oh, anyways, sorry to get off track like that, but
no.
I love LA, the love-hate relationship,
And you know what? I think that's pretty much the way most people feel about LA. If they've spent any real time here.
So who hasn't had that dream there?
Right. I mean, here's the deal. We have wonderful weather. It's a beautiful place to live. Yep. It's got some of the most beautiful women in the world here, and men too. It's a great place on one level, and then on the other level, it's pretty. It's tense in a weird kind of way. You could feel the energy on the East Coast. There's a kinetic kind of thing in the air. People are busy, they're moving about quickly, and sometimes, people say they're brusque. Well, out here, it's just as intense, but it's in a disguised kind of way. And I don't know. I love Los Angeles, and I will be here maybe for the rest of my life. I don't know. My kids love it here, and my wife loves it here. But yeah, sometimes it gets a little tedious. And getting back to the Sony thing, it's just there's sometimes this town is not very brave, and when you talk about those pitch meetings, getting people to take brand new ideas is much more difficult than they want you to think it is. That people say they want new ideas. Well, they want a new idea that is familiar enough that they think it might work. So, it's a tricky thing, but yeah. But you and I will have to talk offline about that. I would love to hear your stories.
Yeah, I just sent out another treatment to a friend who did his TV series here in Toronto he did a police drama, SWAT teams and things like that. Because he's a former SWAT, he is a SWAT officer right now, and he did a script for them. Anyways, so, you still send them out.
Of course. Well, you're a creative individual, and what you do is create, and you have things to say, and I'm sure it's all good material.
Yeah. I'm not going to, it is what it is. Yeah. It's, Anyways, moving on.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this, because when I first became aware of you earlier this year, one of the first things that I saw about you was this idea of historical cycles. And, like you said, everybody's heard the old saying about if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think a lot of people think, well, that's just a general thing. That's an old wives' tale. But you have gone deeper, and you have lived in the East, studied martial arts in China. You've done a lot of research on China, and you actually have data to back this idea up.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's no doubt about it. I try not to get too technical and speaking about subjects because, well, people don't have the time to get into the footnotes. But when I write my material, for example, in the article on historical cycles, which is out in the fall issue of the Trends Journal by Gerald Salente, it doesn't have the footnotes from the original article that I sent him, because the footnotes are like 15 pages. I reference everything I write. It's not, ultimately writing has to be readable to the reader. So you want it to flow, right? So that the reader understands the concepts and can easily grasp one idea and follow on to another. So you don't want to interrupt that flow with, by the way, this is where this idea came from. This researcher discovered that idea. This is cited from a research paper in 1964. It would break it up. So you use that as endnotes and footnotes, but you can't publish that in a magazine article because it takes up 5 pages. But everything that I've written, the same thing with my book, The Art of Urban Survival. When I talk about psychopaths, or when I talk about, how to survive corruption. All the information that I put in there, it's not really me. I mean, I didn't do invent this or discover this research all by myself. What I did is I researched the subject and amalgamated all the ideas and added my tint to it. But it's not. I didn't do the original research. So, to be intellectually and scientifically honest, if you did not do the experimentation yourself, you have to cite your sources. And I think that's good writing. So everything I write does have sources, even though it doesn't appear in the magazine article or, on the video and things like that.
Well, I watched the video today, and I'm a big fan of Gerald Salente, and congratulations on getting that article in there. I watched the video today. I mean, your writing is excellent, and the points that you make are dead on. I mean, it's also very humorous, some of the imagery that you use, because you and I agree on many things, which we'll probably touch on later. But let's go back so the people understand that. Let's talk about the Chinese dynasties and the 3,000 years of history that they had written down and what their experiences were.
Yeah, the Chinese history is very detailed. They had what was known as the court historians, and it was a very interesting tradition. And that is, there would be scholars that would attend the emperor and the imperial family, and they would note down and they would write down everything that happened during that dynasty. And here's the key to it: was the rulers were not allowed to ever read the history. The writings were stored in a locked casket in libraries, and it wouldn't be written until the end of the dynasty had passed. So in other words, if you were, in the Han Dynasty, which lasted, almost 500 years. So the historians would note down everything that occurred during the Han Dynasty, and then they would lock into the box. And none of the Han emperors were allowed to read the history of their own dynasty, because the fear was that they would want to rewrite history, of course, to make themselves look better. So in order to maintain an objectivity, none of the emperors or the officials were allowed to read the history. But then so was no one else. So they had this kind of agreement. So you won't get to read the history and re-edit it, and we won't release all the dirty laundry while you're alive. So and then after the dynasty has fallen, the next dynasty, then it was the job of their court historians to write the history of the previous dynasty based on the notes that they found in the box, So it was an excellent system. And because of that system, you have a pretty clear idea of Chinese history. And it goes back, according to the official history books, which, Jesus, has to be updated by now, it goes back 3,000 years. But really now the latest archaeology shows that it goes back, 8,000 years. And what we have seen in this time is a steady flow in the rise and fall of dynasty. Now, a dynasty is when a certain ruler or a certain clan or a certain tribe of people, even a certain race, like the Manchus were a race that formed the Qing dynasty. But when a certain clan or a group of people seize power, and then the power is transferred from father to son for a number of generations, that constitutes a dynasty. So what we've seen is that in the history of China, there's been like 89 dynasties, and they all kind of follow a very similar pattern. And the pattern starts off with what's known as the warrior age. And the scene opens, country is in chaos. There's been a lot of death. A lot of people are dead. Corpses in the fields, corpses floating down the rivers causing cholera and famine and bandits. And, the place is, it's just Wild West. It's Mad Max, okay? That's the scene. It's Mad Max territory. And finally, out of this madness, a small group of men unite and vow to restore law and order to the land. And they go out and they rally. They either kill anybody that won't join them or have people that join them. They sort of bring stability again. One of these guys, after they've killed each other off, who's ever the strongest of the bandit kings or the bandit leaders, kills the other ones off and then says, wait a minute, I'm the emperor now. And therefore he founds a new dynasty. So that's the warrior period. It comes out of chaos. And it's a time where things are actually pretty good because compared to the previous period, and we'll talk about that last, things are pretty good. So the dynasty begins, and now with all dynasties, they're a little bit shaky because with all royal lines, the whole bloodline and the whole genetic is always a big factor in legitimacy. I never understood that why people thought that the royal bloodline was somehow special and that everybody had to come from a royal bloodline in order to rule, because we know that it's never happened anyways. The bloodlines come and go. It's got nothing to do with bloodline. But once they're in power, well, then it's all about the bloodline.
Right. Yes.
So, anyways, the new emperor then, as with every new emperor, as with every new king, especially from the Tudors from the Plantagenets to the Tudors, or from the Caesarians to the Flavians, once the new guys come in, they're always worried about their heritage. Oh, they're not part of the royal bloodline, so they have to make up for it. And the way they make up for it is they act decently. They can't run around like a crazed tyrant like the previous emperors, because people would go, well, wait a minute, more of the same. And by the way, he doesn't even have the royal blood. Mm-hmm. So for the next 3 or 4 emperors, maybe 5 emperors, depends on how long it lasts, they tend to rule benevolently because they are on a mission to legitimize their royal bloodline now. And so the longer they're in power, the more legitimate their bloodline becomes. And so in order to maintain power, they have to appease the common people. So they can't get away with, cold-blooded butchery. That comes later.
Right.
Right. So during this period is often the golden age, and this is known as the intellectual period, or or the intellectual stage in this cycle. And this is where power goes from the hands of the guys that carved out the empire through bloody sword battles. The sword transfers into the pen. Now it's administration and bureaucracy and benevolent rule and laws and social projects and art projects. This is the time when arts and sciences begin to flower. And this lasts for quite a good time. I mean, I think I would have loved to have been alive during some of these golden periods.
Certainly.
The Tang dynasty, I would have loved to have been alive there. Even the early Song dynasty must have been a great time, But what happens then is the cycle continues, and this over and over again, the same sort of patterns, the 4 stages. The cycle now goes into the 3rd stage, or the 3rd period. And this is the age, what they call the merchant age, or P.J. Sarkar, the Hindu philosopher, calls it the acquisitor age. And this is the age where now things focus towards business. And this kind of makes sense because you've now had a peaceful empire. Usually, they've killed off all their enemies, so there's no more wars. Now we've had peace. And when you have peace, when you aren't spending 75% of your GDP on arming the military, that's a lot of money that gets circulated through the economy. And guess what happens? Everybody's doing pretty good, Mm-hmm. What a concept. Geez, if you didn't piss away all your money on useless wars, people would be richer back home. Who would have thought that?
Exactly.
So that's the intellectual period. Then comes the acquisitor period, and people are making money. So that's good. There's a lot of upward mobility during this period. This is the only time in history where somebody that was born a peasant through hard work and entrepreneurship can acquire a fortune for himself, and sort of establish like a minor family name. You can buy your titles, just like they bought the titles at the end of the English dynasties, So things are good, but eventually what happens is all of this increases the population level. And it reaches a point where it's called the overpopulation point. Now, usually when we think overpopulation, we think, well, there's too many people on the earth and we can't feed them all. It's not really meant how many people there are. Overpopulation point is how many people can be
you govern?
Can be sustained by the current system.
Right.
Okay, so pre-industrial agriculture, an acre that is worked with a horse-drawn plow and harvested by hand and has one crop a year and doesn't have fertilizer, so you have to leave, 1/3 of your feeds fallow for a year, and you don't have pesticides, so you're going to lose half your crop to that. So taking into all considerations, 1 acre can support, 2 families for 1 year. Something like that was a ratio. Once you've had 3 families, now you can't support them. You've reached the overpopulation level because there is no way to intensify the agriculture at that time and period. So if you had 3 families living off an acre of land, those families are now going to start to starve. And that's what's happened. That would happen in China. That's what happened in all these agrarian cultures throughout history. Things are good and everybody's having a good time and they're making money. And there's art and sciences and schools and libraries. So what happens is people, have lots of babies. Nobody's dying from wars. Fewer people are dying from disease because people have food and you're healthy and there's less stress, so you're healthier, so there's less disease. Excuse me. So they have more babies, but what happens is then it reaches an overpopulation level where the system can't support the number of people. Now, in our modern times, we have pesticides to, increase our crop rate yields. We have gasoline engines that, are able to plow more fields and faster and quicker and easier and spend less time. We have automated. So now adding in when you input extra energy into a closed system, you have extra output, Mm-hmm. So we've inputted the extra energy of our fossil fuels. Basically that is, why we are so rich, because before you could only, apply so many man hours or calories per watt of human labor into a piece of property to extract so much yield, and also in terms of calories.
Understood.
Jared Diamond in his book Guns, Germs, and Steel goes over this, right?
Yes.
So
I was actually thinking about that book a little bit while you were saying all this. I was going to bring that up, but go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, everything I say, I've referenced it from somebody else, and
Mm-hmm.
that theory certainly comes from Jared Diamond, and another book really good called Cannibals and Kinks, but I think Michael Harris is the author. Another excellent book, even better than Guns, Germs, and Steel. So now we have, the input of fossil fuels. Now an acre can support 6 families, great. But eventually it runs out. If we have 12 families, then again, doesn't matter how many times we plow that field, we can't support the 12 families. So the overpopulation arrives for the system, and then what happens is the system collapses, and it collapses really fast. And we enter into a period of chaos, which is in the Chinese dynastic cycle, the intermediary period between the dynasties, where we, from the opening scene, we find that everything is in chaos. There's no law and order. There's starvation. There's bandits. There's, rape and pillage. And that's what it all devolves into but by now, also, you've had a 70% drop in population. Now that acre can support 3 families again because there's only 1 family left.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts the cycle again, and boom, there we are. And so there's your four-stage cycle: the warrior age that creates a new dynasty, builds it out of the wilderness, or picks up the broken pieces of the previous civilization and rebuilds. Then there's the age where people are concerned about intelligence and ideas and art and science and flowering of civilization. Then we go into a period of riches, entrepreneurship, innovation, mass production. People are happy. There's shopping malls. The night markets are full. And then we reach a period of saturation or population saturation for that system that can no longer support it, and everything declines quickly. A lot of people drop dead, many from starvation, many others from being murdered by roving street gangs or bandits in the hills. And then from that chaos, once again, we start the whole cycle anew. And wow, 89 times in the last 6,000 years.
Well, when you were talking about the 3,000 years of the Chinese, and you said that in their dynasties, it happened every single time. That pattern, that rise and that fall, you could not avoid it. It always happened.
Yeah, that's the thing. Now, it doesn't always go exactly cleanly like this, and from one stage into the other. A lot of times they kind of blend. For example, the merchant age might linger through. There might be some cities that still functioned while the rest of the country was still, complete chaos. So there is a little bit of overlapping between these and the time periods. How long each period lasts or each stage lasts is always variable. I mean, you can go through a chaos period of 100 years, or it could take place in 10 years. Mm-hmm. So between the original Qin dynasty and the founding of the Han dynasty was like 20 years of civil war and bloodshed and mass murder, but that only took 20 years. But between the end of the Han dynasty and the start of the I'm forgetting now what was the next one after that. Song, I think. There was a couple hundred years.
Well, one of the things that I find very interesting about this, and none of this, when you lay it out, none of it is surprising. It all makes sense. And yet, we are the masters of our own destiny. And when you describe these four stages, there is a psychology that goes along with these four stages. I love the fact that, there is a warrior stage. And, a warrior is violent, but a warrior gets things done as well. And then there is an intellectual stage and an intellectual it gives rise to the arts, learning. These things are all good. The merchant is not all bad. I mean, we need to prosper. We want to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, be more successful. But the psychology that goes with these things, it gets darker over time. And, it should come as no surprise, obviously, that people would want to know, okay, well, which stage are we in now? And it really seems like we would be in the merchant stage moving into the chaos stage. And you mentioned in your video and the article how our leaders, and this comes with the massing of riches and power. Well, guess what? Power corrupts absolutely. And we go from the noble and the warrior hero kind of state of mind into greedy, lustful, power-grubbing racketeers and criminals that eventually lead us into destruction. Yet, if we didn't go along with it, it wouldn't be allowed to happen.
Yeah. It's hard to say, because it seems that it's inevitable. I don't know.
Right.
We have to treat humans. Oh boy, I hate to sound like I'm pontificating.
No.
We kind of have to treat humans. It's like, it's just coming to me. Einstein's split light experiment, where you shine a light through a split screen, and sometimes it behaves as a wave, and sometimes it behaves as a particle. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think human beings are the same way. If I, talk to people on a one-to-one basis, then to me they are human and they behave like a particle in the split screen experiment. And then I would think, yes, there's possibility that if you and everyone like us and you and me and we were to change our attitudes, we could prevent this from happening. But then we are also part of a organism, the human amoeba, in which case we behave like a wave. And as we behave like a wave, well, we can't do anything about it. Not that way. We're a mob then. We're a mindless animal that is directed and motivated by only the most basic needs of survival and reproduction, and any nuance of making change from within and changing the direction in which we're going is futile, because it is a mindless animal that is going to go the way nature has intended it to go. So I'm split on that. I think individually we can do things so that we will personally be better off, and our families and our communities would be better off. However many people you can get on your side and kind of vow to stay decent during what's coming up, the better. But I think humanity, or the civilization, the mob that we belong to as a community, as a giant organism, that's going to go through that cycle. There doesn't seem to be any hope to avoid that.
Well, you may be right. And by the way, I don't think you're pontificating at all. I think you're a really critical. I think you're basically a critical thinker. And pontificating, it's probably me, but I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I think you're probably right. We probably will have to go through this as a people, as a civilization, and maybe that's not all bad. Maybe this is just the way we are. And it's funny because when I listen to you, I also think about the idea of karma, reincarnation, and living over and over again. And that's a spiritual idea, but in some ways it's very similar to the way we as a civilization have to live here in the three dimensions. We as a civilization or as a people are reborn out of chaos, and we have to go through this thing all over again, like almost a Hollywood movie, trying to get it right. And maybe we won't ever get it right, but the strive to do so is perhaps maybe that's the reason we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think it's the highest ideal, or the highest purpose of your life on this planet is to, try to be aware of what's going on and do your best to do.
Agreed.
That's what more can you do? So.
I agree with you, Stefan, and it's funny because I always think about our last conversation, because we were talking about, protecting one's family and handguns and this, that, and the other. And you said something to me that really resonated, and it made me smile. And it's so true. It's like you said something to the effect, like, Michael, you can't just stand on principle, and you can't stop it. You can't stop a train with a smile, as they say. I mean, it's good to do the best that you can and to have the ideals. But you also have to be self-aware and know that you can only do so much in the long run.
Yeah, you have to live your life according to, your own ideals and your own morality. And hopefully,
Yes.
You have a morality. A lot of people don't have it. I don't know why they don't have it. It was beaten out of them in childhood or brainwashed out of them through the educational system. But, there are people out there that are born with a sense of right and wrong. It's not, for me, I don't need any laws. I don't need to crack a law book to tell me how to live a virtuous life. I know what's right and what's wrong. I know if I'm doing something that would hurt another human being, I wouldn't do it. It's not rocket science. So
Right.
Live a life of virtue is not some, great mystical pursuit or anything. Geez, that's the only thing that could possibly separate us from, the animals. And actually that's not even true, because I find virtue among animals too. But listen, human nature evolved a conscience in us, which is, very strange. Why would it do that? Now, I'm not a religious person at all, but I try to be very critical about it. So it's not necessary for the survival of our species. I mean, we've been through 50 million years walking around as monkeys, and that was just fine. We didn't perish. We didn't become extinct.
Mm-hmm.
So why would nature cause us to evolve self-awareness? That is the really curious thing, because according to, the rules of nature, nothing evolves if it does not fulfill a survival function, So you can have, look like a twig if it wasn't because looking like a twig allowed you to survive. So what is it about the conscience that nature wanted us to evolve? So that's the mystery. So for me, I think that any person that has some self-awareness, you have to live your life dedicated to that. That's what you were put here for, obviously, because why else would you have a conscience? You could be perfectly fine being incarnated as a turtle. The world does not need human beings for another mammalian life form, but we're here and we have something unique. So I think we should explore that uniqueness, which is our awareness.
Well, I know that we're coming up on the break pretty quickly, but ever since I spoke with you the last time, that we started off our conversation with the idea that some of us actually don't have that much of a conscience, and those people are the psychopaths. And we discussed how being a psychopath is actually evolutionarily beneficial to you if you want to be a CEO or something like that. And since we've discussed that idea, I don't know if it's the phenomenon where if you buy a certain car, you start noticing more of that car on the road. But since you and I discussed that, I've really seen a lot of that idea gaining traction in the press, and maybe it's just a result of your work, I'm not sure, but I have seen a lot of people mentioning, the fact that psychopaths, there is a psychology here that is advantageous to those who want to scale the ladders of success, and it's not for the benefit of the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think it is perception bias that you're seeing. There is definitely more awareness of psychopaths, and the fact that probably your leaders and your religious leaders and your business leaders are probably psychopaths.
Absolutely.
And it is a survival mechanism. And perhaps, and I'm thinking that this somehow must play a key role in our dynastic cycle, in our theory of historical cycles, because what happens towards the end of the acquisitor stage is that you have an accumulation of psychopaths in power. And I think it's a natural course of events. For example, you now have a lot of money available within an economy and greater opportunity. And also you have more hierarchical structures, because during the intellectual stage, they created a lot of these institutions and flow of command and things like that. So, but these institutions and these hierarchical structures are perfect for psychopaths to infiltrate and achieve positions of power in. So, during the intellectual stage, and now we have the monetary stage, this is a rich environment. It's sort of like the mixture that breeds more psychopaths, and then they get in charge and they lead the charge to destruction. So maybe if the rest of us can become more self-aware and spot the psychopaths and isolate them as the virus that they are, and I'm not advocating doing any harm to psychopaths, but
no.
Just don't vote for them. Don't follow them into battle. Don't, just have nothing to do with them. And then they would have no power. And if it wasn't for them being in charge, would our society go through this period of destruction every time? So that's why I was focusing on psychopaths. I think that's a possibility, a possible solution.
Well, listen, certainly out of a population of 7 billion, there are going to be some bad apples, and some of those are going to be severely bad apples, and then they will be able to do the things that we as decent human beings would not be able to do because we would just find it abhorrent. But there's also an aspect of humanity I've not seen The Wolf of Wall Street yet, but I am told that there is a particular character in the film that I think Matthew McConaughey plays, and basically what he instructs his protege to is at our break. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Parker. This is Electric Pyramid. We're speaking with Stefan Verstappen. We're going to take a quick break. We will follow this up. We'll be back in just about 5 minutes. Hang in there. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. My name is Michael Parker. This is the second hour of the Electric Pyramid, and today is Thursday, December the 18th, if you're on the West Coast. It is Friday, December the 19th, if you are on the East Coast. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and we are speaking with our guest, Stefan Verstappen, about his most recent article regarding historical cycles. Are we doomed to repeat the past? And what I was talking about right before the break is that in the film The Wolf of Wall Street, there is a character that I believe Matthew McConaughey plays, and basically he explains to his young protege, who is the primary character of the film, I think that, listen, if you're going to succeed in this business, you got to do drugs, and you have to be an alpha male. And basically he's telling the guy you're going to have to be an antisocial piece of crap to succeed. And I think when you look at certain pieces of pop culture like that or gangster rap, there is this idea that is enticing to a portion of the population that is decent people. And they think, well, gosh, if I'm a good guy, then I'm just never going to succeed. I mean, it's like I'm going to have to crack some heads here in order to move forward and to get ahead. I don't believe that's true, but I can understand how some people would think that. And it is perpetuated in some of our pop culture ideas. And it is what it is. I'm not saying that it's going to change anytime soon. It is a fact that a portion of our population is not going to be as nice as the rest of us. We cannot change that. And maybe if you are a religious person, maybe you could see this as duality, and it gives us an example of what we don't want to be and what we are fighting against. I'm not saying that, there is a devil or there is not a devil. But listen, there are people who are evil. There are people who are bad. And there's people who just straight up have no moral compass, and they don't care. But that doesn't mean that that's most of us. I think those people are in the minority, and it is the rest of us to do, as Stefan said, which is, hold our course. Just try to do the best thing you can. Now, moving forward, if we are, in fact, headed into chaos, which, listen, if you pay attention halfway, it would be hard not to think that we are moving into chaos of some sort. As we mentioned last week before the show really got going, we were talking about the price of oil, for example. Well, guess what? It just keeps getting lower. And a lot of people are putting theories as to why that is. Is this some kind of economic warfare that we are waging against Putin and Russia, because they derive a lot of their economic strength right now from their petroleum exports? I don't have the answer to that, but it would not surprise me if that's what's going on. And guess what? I don't think we should be poking the Russian bear with a stick at all. But it just goes to show that these types of arguments are provincial, nationalistic games are not going to go away anytime soon. So, Stefan, if we are moving towards a time of chaos, I don't think I need to tell anybody what that would look like. Let's instead move forward into the warrior period that would come after chaos. How would we as a species, let's just say everything goes straight south, everything breaks down, and we're left with a fraction of the population that we had before. How would we rise again? What would be our first steps?
Yeah, good question. and I asked myself this question too, because I did a lot of research for my first book, the 36 Strategies, and that's when I really started to crystallize the whole historical cycles, and that's also why I wrote The Art of Urban Survival, because I wrote that as a way of saying, look, this is what you're going to need to know for what's coming. Mm-hmm. Because the book is divided into, first of all, crime prevention. These period of chaos is marked by increased crime. Now, I remember you asked me earlier in the email about some of the founders of the historical cycles, and two researchers back in 1994, Chinese researchers, C.Y. Chu and R.D. Li, published a paper called Famine, Revolt, and the Dynastic Cycle. And they were one of the first people to formulate a mathematical formula to predict the cyclic history or the cyclic nature of history. Mm-hmm. And what they said was, during the collapse period, the population is divided into, of all things, three types: the rulers, bandits, and peasants. And that's what happens in the time of chaos. And what they said is, what happens is that the more severe the conditions become, the more peasants become bandits. And then it's a battle between the rulers and their police forces and the bandits to take advantage over the remaining peasants. Right. And so that's the choice you face for the future. Do you want to join the criminal class? Do you want to join the elite class as a thug, as an enforcement agent, or do you want to try and be an honest, decent person and have both the elite class and the thugs preying on you? Those aren't really good choices. So
it's pretty bleak.
It's pretty bleak, but we can see that now. It's getting so hard to earn a living, and we can see we're at the end of the merchant stage, heading into chaos, because our system cannot support all the people we have. If it could support all the people we have, we wouldn't have these hundreds and hundreds of homeless camps. I lived in California too. I went 5 miles out of town, and there's a ravine there, and there's 5,000 people living in that ravine. And yourself outside in the hills. Look at San Francisco. Look at the park in front of City Hall there. Go there at night. There is 500 people and 700 shopping carts there. Obviously, the system can't support the population that it has. It could support them. We could perfectly easy to feed and house everybody on the planet right now, but because our system is predicated on consumption and waste and constant growth, that can't support everybody. If everybody has to go out and buy all this crap and work their whole life and spend all their money on this bullshit, we can't support the whole world. We could feed them and all that, but not according to this capitalist greed system that we have now. So we're at the end of the system. We have this excess population, all these unemployed people, and the unemployment. It's getting harder and harder to make a living. So what's your choice then? Now the choice starts to become, well, maybe it's going to start off, I'm going to lie on my resume,
Yes.
But after that, it's going to be, I'm going to have to rob the neighbor. There's a progression to this, and this is what we're facing. We're going to face a period where everybody's, at each other's throats, struggling to make a living at first, and probably in 5 years we'll be struggling to feed our families. And then when you have hungry children, I know you have children, Michael.
Yes.
Can you imagine the pressure that would be on you if you could see that they're getting sick because they don't have enough to eat? I mean, it would drive you insane. You would do just about anything to feed them, and so would everyone else. And that's what happens. And it's a terrible thing, but oh my God. Of course you're going to have to commit a crime. It's like, Les Miserables. I don't know if you're familiar with the Victor Hugo story. Jean Valjean steals a loaf of bread and he's hunted for the rest of his life. But he stole that loaf of bread because his family was hungry. That's going to be us, okay?
Yeah, it doesn't make you a bad person. You are simply adapting to your surroundings and trying to survive.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm worried about, that they're going to make it so bad for us that we all are going to have to start to be sneaky and ruthless and heartless as a survival strategy. So that's typically what happens. Now, how can you prevent that? Well, the only way I can see is the virtues of the warrior ethic, because the warrior ethic, we want to think that things can be resolved peacefully, and that seldom happens in history.
Agreed.
It's almost never resolved peaceably. It's always resolved through violence, and whoever is willing to commit the most violence first and the most tends to be the victor. So if you're somebody who is so horrified and terrified of violence, and most people are, if somebody walks up to you in the street and takes a swing at you, most people are going to freeze like a deer in the headlight because they're not used to it. It's ugly. It's unexpected. They'll go into shock. They'll stand there and they'll be victimized. They won't even defend themselves. This is what's going to happen. So, for a large percentage of the population, they won't be able to deal with it and they'll become victims. So what can you do to, prevent that? And that is the warrior ethic. You need to, first of all, strengthen your intellect. You have to be able to face certain realities. I want to believe that the government's going to be there and be able to, send out food parcels and emergency hospitals. I want to believe that. I really do. And I hope that's the way it's going to go. But if it doesn't, then you're going to have to be tough. Mentally, you have to think for yourself, and you're going to have to think of how to scrounge and survive those conditions. And if you're smart, you can survive these conditions without having to sell your soul to some criminal organization or become a security guard or something like that. But you have to be tough, and that's the warrior ethic: courage, self-reliance, and I don't like to say this, but you have to become accustomed to violence. It's a good idea to take some martial arts classes. It's a good idea to take some firearms lessons and even do some combat shooting. Those are good things, because hopefully you will never need to use any of those talents or skills that you develop. But when things get rough, if you are already mentally acclimatized to that, so that when somebody does take a swing at you, you don't blank out. No, you know what to do. You evade, you avoid, you get your wife and kids out of the way, then you counterattack. Same thing if you hear gunfire going off in the neighborhood around you, you set up a defensive position, you get your firearms, you designate a field of fire, and you observe and watch. Those things will keep you alive. Doesn't mean you have to go kill anybody or beat them up or anything, but just the mentality to be able to quickly go into a defensive mode and assess the situation and assess the threat level and make sure that your people are safe and get them out of the way, and then be prepared mentally to institute counter-violence. If you're not prepared to institute counter-violence mentally, let me tell you, the predators smell that, and you are, floating. You're a sitting duck. They know when you're prepared to back it up and when you're not. So if mentally you are not prepared to back it up, you're a victim already. So the warrior ethic is, I will go my own way and I won't, mess with you. But if you mess with me, I will take you down. I will fight back. I will make life much more difficult for you. And it's a weird thing, but the psychopaths and the street criminals, they sense that from you. I've seen it once. I've seen it 100 times, Michael. If you're prepared to back it up, if you've got the confidence of your own convictions and your mental preparation and your physical preparation, you've got to get in shape, do some biking, do some jogging, whatever it takes. But you're strong in mind and body, and you're going to say to yourself, there is a line that people will not cross without suffering, repercussions coming from me. That mental attitude alone would dissuade 90% of the potential attacks against you. The bad guys will sense that coming from you, and it's a weird thing. I'm not a big proponent of ESP or whatever, but there is some sort of communication that goes on between predator and prey. And they'll know when you're prepared to stand your ground, and they will back off. Because why? Because there's 100 people out there that aren't prepared to stand their ground. And
Stefan,
will be.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I would even advance this idea that when we talk about the warrior archetype and this idea, and I mentioned to you, I really love it, and I hope that people rise to this, is also just the idea that you will be courageous in a mental sense, and begin to accept the fact that, guess what? You know what? The government may not be able to deliver those parcels you were talking about, and I'll be willing to bet they won't be able to do it because they don't. Listen, I guess my point is, it's like I know many people that they want to believe all of the right things, and they want to believe the official story. They want to believe the propaganda. They don't believe that bad things happen. They don't want to believe that supposedly our leaders would do certain things. But guess what? They have, and they will. And just because it happens in a third world country, or it's happened in the past, for some reason you don't think it will happen now on our soil, you are incredibly naive. So I agree with you. It is the time to learn self-defense. It is time to have the mindset that you will be prepared to protect yourself, but also just be prepared to accept the fact that, guess what? These people are not all my friend, and they may have betrayed my trust.
Yeah, it becomes, the lifeboat scenario that they always used to teach us in school, or that little mind game, or mind paradigm. I'm not thinking right. Where who do you throw out of a lifeboat kind of thing, but those kind of decisions, you're going to have to make them. And the people who throw out of the lifeboat are the ones that you can't trust, that don't bring anything to the game. The ones that are, your fair weather friends. Everything is fine and dandy when you're picking up the tab, but God forbid you should get sick or something. You'll never see them again.
Right.
So, yeah, you have to cull the chaff from the wheat, and that requires a bit of ruthlessness. You can't have 6,000 Facebook friends come and visit you, in your house.
This is true.
Because they're not your friends. You don't know them. They don't bring anything to the table. I teach the disaster preparedness, and I was I wrote an article about, how to get ready for Snowmageddon, when we get these big snowfalls here. And son of a gun, the next week we got 6 feet of snow here in Buffalo,
Mm-hmm.
So one of the guys I was talking to, he says, oh, yeah, well, I know what'll happen, where I'll go if, we get snowed in and everybody's starving. We'll go over to Stefan's house. And I'm going, no, you won't.
No.
I mean, I don't want to be, you're a nice guy or whatever. I got nothing against you. But I do know that you've been around me for a couple of months now. You've heard me talk on this subject, and you have not made the slightest effort to stockpile any extra food in your house or, acquire any useful skills. But I have. But and then you're just going to come over and live with me? No.
No.
So it's going to be like that in coming up. So that's one of the other strategies too. Is you have to get your people lined up now. You need to kind of make sort of tentative agreements at first, and then later on more serious agreements between those people that you trust in your life. Now that might be family. For a lot of us, it's not family,
right.
But it could be family, or it could be friends, or, just your wife and your kids. But you have to have a plan on how you can work together if things go bad, so that you support each other. And like I said, I was trying to answer the question that you asked earlier of, what do you do? How do we prevent, turning into bandits with the rest of them? One of the solutions that I found from the study of history is the monastic system. The monasteries survived a lot of these downfalls. After the fall of Rome, it was the monasteries that, preserved most of the history of ancient Rome and Greece through the books. They also were, the remaining centers of trade within a community, because people would bring their goods and their produce to the open market that was usually within a monastery or within the surroundings of a monastery. So they would have trade fairs and conduct trade and, hear cases, court rulings and disputes. And the only place in Europe where you could learn how to read was in a monastery. So they preserved some knowledge. And they also created businesses. They had they produced wool and wine, and of course they reproduced books. So they were allowed to survive while all around them it was the Dark Ages. People were running around with swords and axes. It might not have been as terrible as we were led to believe, but it still wasn't great.
No.
So I looked at that, and, the same thing happened in Japan, and the same thing happened in China, for example. The whole origin of the martial arts actually comes from a monastery, and the whole purpose of that monastery was to try to preserve the knowledge during the collapse of the Tang Dynasty. So here we have, the whole theory of martial arts. It's actually the knowledge that was preserved in a monastery during a period of chaos, and during that period of chaos, they wanted the monks to survive. So they taught them martial arts. So there again, you see, it's the warrior ethic that allowed, the Shaolin monastery to survive and allowed martial arts tradition to continue for thousands of years. So if we take that concept of a monastery, what is it really? Let's remove the religious aspect of it. And what we are left with is really simple. It's a group of people that work together in a small autonomous community, anywhere between 50 to 300 people. And they have separated themselves, and they're self-sufficient. They're not dependent on the empire. So when Rome collapsed, the monastery was able to survive because it didn't need the wheat imports from Egypt because they grew their own wheat. They didn't need the wine imports from Greece because they made their own wine. They didn't need the wool imports from Ireland because they had their own farms. So when Rome collapsed and everybody that was dependent on the empire, because remember, at the end of the Roman Empire, they basically had a huge social welfare system. Everybody that was dependent on those imports and the government disbursements of food and wine, well, that didn't come. So, and they had no backup. So they starved, and while they're starving, they go at each other's throats, and then the toughest street gangs take over and take what's left. And anyways, so they're all at each other's throats. Meanwhile, 150 miles away up in the hills, the monastery is doing fine. So how can we recreate that kind of a system in our society now? And we can by simply agreeing to cooperate. So, let's say if I lived, back in where I used to live in Ventura, I would say to you, Joe, look, if things get hairy in L.A., the drought continues, and now people are literally dying of thirst because that could happen in L.A. There's no other water.
Certainly.
Right? Something happens to the L.A. River there, it dries up, or look at the lake up there by the Hoover Dam. It's already down, down to a third of what its former capacity. It could happen. But so I would say, look, Michael, you drive up to Ventura. That's an hour drive north of L.A., and I know a place up in the mountains close to Ojai, near Lake Casitas there, that will have running water most of the year, and I know where we can stay. And you and I will work, bring your family up. Your wife, my wife, will get along together. There's a cabin up there. I'll bring up the extra food and medicine, and we'll help each other out. And I'll invite you and another 10 people that I know that also have skills. I'll invite my doctor friend. I'll invite my cop friend,
Sure.
And we'll bring all our skills, and we'll stay together, and we'll wait it out for the, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that it takes, hopefully not longer than that, before things return to normal. So if you can plan ahead of time to do something like that, then when it comes, you won't be caught off guard because, the mathematical formulas, they provide a lot of charts. And I don't pretend to understand the math behind it, but I can read the charts, and it shows this huge drop-off in population level. It's like this rising curve, and then suddenly it's a straight line down to bottom. So it happens fast. So if you're in LA now, and you wake up tomorrow, and it's already too late because the lights are out and they're not coming on again, ever.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Too late to call me and say, Steph, can I come up there? Because, you don't have my phone number. You don't know where I live. If we'd planned this ahead of time, you would know, okay, I know where to go. and I know where to leave a sign that I've been there, and we will all meet. It's a rendezvous position, and it's a retreat position, and we have a method of communicating already set up in advance. So if the lights go out, now Michael Parker and his wife are going to say, let's get out of here. We've got to go up to Lake Casitas, and Stefan will be there, and he'll have the cabin set up for us by the time we arrive. But if we don't set that up in advance, you wake up in the morning, the lights are out. What are you going to do, Mike?
No, you're absolutely. You're right. Audience, I hope you're not hearing the echo that I'm hearing. Bear with me when I speak, because I'm hearing a very strange sound. But Stefan, I've actually had these conversations with some friends of mine. Some friends have large amounts of firearms. Some of them have all-terrain vehicles. And you're right. I mean, you have to set these things up ahead of time and decide what each person can bring to the table. And when you and I were emailing back and forth earlier about this monastic kind of structure, my imagination was running with me. But part of me was almost seeing something like the Matrix, because, at some point in the future, I see something like this happening. There will be groups of people who, even if there is not an operating grid, there will be some people that have a little bit of technology. Perhaps they'll have generators of some sort. I guess what I'm describing is there will be a rebel underground, and it will be a sustainable society, and we will try to preserve what knowledge we can. So whatever form that takes, I agree with you. Monastic structure is the thing that would get us through the harsh periods, and it makes sense. And when the conquistadors came to North America, what did they allow to happen first? The setup of missions, and the missions would be where the trade occurred. Again, they made a lot of wine here, like what you're talking about, and people would go there, and the indigenous peoples would come and even be allowed to mix. So the monastic structure actually kind of turns me on. I like that idea. I like the idea of a warrior mentality, being brave and facing things and taking things head on. And I also mentioned to you that sometimes I'm skeptical that we would be up to the situation. I know that some people would be more geared for this than others. But yeah, I mean, listen, if a natural catastrophe occurred immediately here in Los Angeles, I think greater Los Angeles is around 12 million people. I can't remember what the actual numbers for days are, but it would be a matter of days. Listen, I was here for the riots. That was 72 hours of complete insanity. This town was on fire. I got mugged. I was nearly killed. I was attacked from behind. I never saw them coming. But mine was just one story out of hundreds. But let's say something far worse than that happens. And because at least here at that point, there were still large parts of the city and the community that had electricity, and you could go to a bank or get gas or what have you. But let's say the whole grid goes down. Let's say all of that fails. Then yes, we fall into bloodshed anarchy in 72, 96 hours. And you're right. A lot of people die very quickly because then people start pillaging each other for supplies. So yeah, you're right. I mean, that number drops off quickly. You lose a lot of people in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to guess that when you got mugged, you were by yourself?
I was by myself, and I was living in Venice. I did not even see my attackers. Interestingly enough, one of my roommates did. And weirdly enough, I mean, I lived in a bad neighborhood to begin with. I was in a band. We lived in a large house. We were in Venice, and we were a mixed crew. I mean, we had black and white people living under the same roof because we were all friends, and there were guys and girls. So, I mean, we were the farthest thing from racist or sexist or anything. But the night that the riots happened, I had been given a call by my then girlfriend that I needed to, leave work and get home immediately. And by this point, it's late in the afternoon, early evening. By the time I get off my second bus and am walking to my house in Venice, two young men come up from behind me. I never saw them. I never heard them, nothing. They dropped me, with the first blow. And my roommate says she thinks they had something in their hands. So, I was in the wrong place at exactly the right time. They beat me. They nearly killed me, but they didn't. But point being is that I have seen this firsthand, and it gets bad really quickly. And I think that people need to be prepared to understand that this thing, like you said, it can go south really quickly. And to think that it won't, and to think that the government or somebody's going to be around to save you is just completely, that's just wishful thinking. That's probably not going to happen. Guess what? When they called the cops never showed. The only people that showed up to even take a look at me were the firemen. And I did come to consciousness briefly to remember that point. Because the cops didn't come, ambulance didn't come, some firemen came, 3 of them. I remember regaining consciousness for just a few minutes and seeing 3 guys all dressed in yellow looking at me and basically saying, yeah, wow, that dude got completely beat up. And then they had to leave because, there were literally fires to put out. The infrastructure failed.
Wow. And that was in Venice?
Yes, because the first night of the riots, and that was April 1992. I lived in Venice, but I lived in a bad neighborhood. We were naive young people. We had a rock and roll band living in a house, and we were in a bad neighborhood, and we were
had bad neighborhoods.
No, absolutely, it does. It was called Ghost Town at that point. And still, there was the Venice 13 was the big gang down there, but basically it wasn't even the gang that attacked me. It was just local kids. But we lived in a full-on crack neighborhood. There was gunshots every night, but we thought we were cool. We thought we were artists and having fun, and, we were in an edgy environment. And when the proverbial poo-poo hit the fan, guess what? It went bad really quickly. I moved out of there shortly after that, but I just bring the story up as I've never forgotten it. And every time I go to Venice now, I can't shake the idea because, it's real. It happened. I was grossly unprepared. We were all unprepared.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's real. When it happens, it's real. And I am very lucky that I didn't die.
No, you're lucky, and that is a great illustrative story, that Michael, because, you see how that all changed in 72 hours. And this wasn't even nationwide or even statewide or even citywide. This was, sort of a very localized event. And sure, go ahead, call the cops. There are no cops to come and save you. So you have to save yourself. That's why you need to be a warrior. And also, there are no ambulances to come and pick you up. That's why you need people around you that know first aid and can pick you up off the ground, revive you, and get you safe. So, that's why we need to have communities that can look after each other, people that you trust that've got your back. And if you don't have that, then you're all by yourself and you will be targeted like that. Yes. See, with me and in my writing on, during the age of crime and chaos, one of the things I wrote in the book is that you don't go out by yourself. So if that was happening and, we had, somehow gotten together there in California, if you had to go somewhere, I would be with you, okay? And I would have the shotgun,
right?
And you would have the pistol, and I would, follow 5 feet behind you. And it's tactical, And then if, some guys are waiting in the dark alley for victims to walk by, they're not going to target you and me because we're too far apart and we're both armed. So we're going to just keep on walking, and you keep that gun visible so that they can see that you're armed. I don't believe in that situation a concealed carry is to your benefit. You want to show that you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So I'd have the shotgun and you'd have whatever, and then we'd go and pick up the groceries or pick up the wife or whatever it is, why we had to go out into the city. And then we'd come back. But that's why you need to plan this ahead of time so that you can say, listen, I'm taking the bus. Meet me at the bus stop. Have somebody there, even if you're not carrying a shotgun or something. It doesn't matter. Have 2 of your buddies there. Maybe they can bring a baseball bat or something. Even that would help. And meet you at the bus stop. So when you get off the bus, you are not by yourself on the street. I used to do that with my girlfriends and things like that too. I'm going to walk you to the bus stop, but I'm going to also meet you at the bus when you come here. I'm not going to let you just walk up the street by yourself. So those are the types of strategies you need to employ to, survive the crime that will take place inevitably during these times of chaos. Because, most people are good, but it only takes a few bad people to, really screw everything up.
Big time.
So the good people have to unite to provide a front against these few bad characters. And that's why I'm saying, the monastic system, listen, right now, we are not going to convince anybody to form a monastery up in the San Bernardino Mountains. It's not going to happen, because things are too good. You can't get people to organize that way that far in advance. But you start off with a simple agreement of mutual support and mutual aid, right?
Yes.
So if you're sick or something like that, I can come down because I've got some medical skills. I can see what I can do, And the same thing if we had to, meet up at a rendezvous situation, Uncle Bernie's farm up in the mountains, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, once we're there, we can then form a monastery, as long as you have a place where you and your trusted people with skills and hopefully supplies and equipment can meet and rendezvous, that then becomes your monastery. And if you want to build an extra shack to house some more people or build a stronger fence around the place, reinforce it, build extra buildings, scrounge, whatever. Yeah, so it happens. So it evolves. And in 20 years from now, it's a full-fledged monastic system, We can't do that. We can't establish that ahead of time. People just aren't going to go for it right now. But at least lay down the groundwork, the blueprint. How are we going to help each other when things get hairy? How can we support each other? Where can we meet if suddenly we can't communicate? That's most important because, when the lights and the cell phones go out, that's it, folks. There's no getting on. I'm going to email you and ask you how things are there. No, there is no email. I'm going to get on the phone and give you a call and see, is LA burning? No, I can't get on the phone. So you now reduced to shortwave radio. Hopefully you have one already. I've got one.
Yes.
So that's some form of communication. Do we know what frequency to communicate on ahead of time? That's something you need to establish. You get your friends together and you say, okay, if the lights go out and the phones turn off and you have a shortwave radio and your friends can come to you and you can, forward messages. So, not everybody needs a shortwave. So long as there's 2 or 3 among your group that you can forward messages and get information from the outside world. But, let's specify what frequency we're going to contact each other on, ahead of time so that we can pick up the radio and say, like, Mike, how's it over there? You're on your way up where you are,
Mm-hmm.
So if we can establish that ahead of time, some sort of protocol, that would be the best thing people can do right now. Establish some protocols. Where are you going to meet? What are you going to bring with you? What can you carry if you have to go there? I mean, we don't have to go somewhere outside of the country either or outside of the city. We could meet at a friend's house because he's got a bigger house and he's got a swimming pool with water in it that will support us for a year. Okay?
Right.
So then we'll all move to his house, right? And we'll barricade the doors and we'll put up some defensive fences, and we'll bring 3 or 4 families in there with firearms, and we've got a swimming pool full of water. That's our monastery, But, plan it out now so that when it does happen, you're not caught out in the open. But what I'm afraid is going to happen is that, boom, the lights go out and everybody's going, oh, geez, well, we should have planned somewhere to go, but now, now it's too late. Where are you going to go? Who are you going to talk to? You're cut off. You're on your own. So better to establish that in advance.
And Stefan, I mean, certainly that is going to be a vast majority of the people. I mean, yeah, we could talk about this all day, and you're right. A lot of people, times are too good. They're just not going to take it seriously. But, we are planting seeds. The information's out there, and we're not the only guys who are saying this. I hear more and more of this when I listen to various radio shows. I mean, the idea of sustainability and protecting yourself, these are gaining traction more so, I think, than I've ever seen in my life. So there are people who are preparing for these things, and not everybody's going to buy it, but there are those who will. And the thing I like about your writing is that it's very easy for people to go out there and be all doom and gloom, but it is much more, it's much rarer to see people who are offering concrete solutions, which is what you're offering. I mean, the book Surviving Urban Warfare, which we spoke about in the last time, I mean, there were dozens of scenarios that you described in there and gave, solutions to, which I found. I mean, my wife was very interested in that book as well. I mean, these are concrete solutions. This isn't just, hey, everything's going straight to straight to hell in a handbasket, and there's no way around it. You are offering solutions that make sense. So I find that powerful information.
Oh, well, thank you, Michael. It's not rocket science. It's not that difficult. It scares people to think about that, and I don't know why, but it does scare people, a lot of people, and that's why they don't want to get into it. I'm not advocating, doomsday prepper, get a bunker, no. and listen, yeah, have some preparations, but sometimes I think of myself too. I think, geez, you're such a baby, 'cause I'll worry about things, or I'll grumble about, hardships that I have to endure. But compared to what people in the past have had to live through, oh my God, it's nothing, as bad as it could possibly get. People will live through that, and people have lived through that all through history, and not just big tough guys. Women and children lived through these bad times in the past. And they've come through it, Yeah, a lot of people didn't make it, but, a lot of people did make it.
Yes.
And they endured that. And we can endure that too. We just, it's purely your mental attitude towards it. You're stuck in traffic and you're all pissed off. And,
yes.
Especially LA traffic,
Yes.
And you're going, yeah, goddamn Jesus Christ, why can't we... Listen, that is nothing. That's nothing to get upset about. So even if it gets tough for a few years, if you have to move in with some friends, if you have to pool your resources, wow, that's nothing. That's easy. People have survived a lot worse than that and come through it and built a new society at the end. I often tell people about, my family during World War II. They're originally from Holland. And, look at 1944 Holland. I mean, this was bombed out. They were an occupied country. All the young men had already been exported to factory camps. People were literally starving all over Europe at that time. And, 10 years later, it was the middle of the 1950s. Everybody had a car and a house and a swimming pool. And Beach Boys were in the garage band at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a difference from burned out hellhole, mass starvation, guns and dead bodies everywhere, 80 million people killed. 10 years later, it's pretty good again, and everybody's going to the party. So, they lived through that. We can live through what's coming. And let's live through it with, make sure the good people survive it with their integrity intact. And again, that sort of gets back into the warrior ethic, because, you have to be strong to protect your integrity. It's the weak guy that sells out and says, "Yeah, I'll become your pimp. I'll become your whore for you." I'll join the side of evil if you want. The
stormtroopers.
Yeah, I'll become one of the stormtroopers. I'll guard the gold for the rich guys for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but is that the people we want to found the next? Incarnation of our civilization? No, I don't think so.
They're the punks.
They're the punks, exactly. And using the prison interpretation of punk, right?
Exactly.
Yep. They're the punks. Okay, so in order to not be a punk, if you're going to go into a prison system, a buddy of mine, one of my students, he's also a tough martial arts guy. He was arrested. He went into jail there, and first thing he did is he got up into in the lunchroom and he said, "Anybody wants to fuck me up the ass, come for it right now, because I'm going to kill you." Excuse me.
Yep.
And people left him alone. And the guards even went up to him and said, "Listen, you don't have to be that hardcore. This is a Canadian prison. It's not like the United States."
Yeah.
But he came out there full hardcore. Yeah, you want to? Yeah, I'm nobody's punk. Bring it on right now, because I'm going to take you down. Good. That's the attitude you need, okay? So when things get tough, when it gets harder to feed the family and it gets harder to find, employment, and listen, are you going to be the punk, or are you going to say, look, come for me because I'm going to take you down. Try to make me your punk. It's not going to happen. That's the warrior ethic. So that's all I can say about that, really.
Well, I love the warrior ethic. I find it inspiring, and hey, we could use more of it. I'm going to change the subject for just a moment in these last few minutes that we have, because something that you said, I'm not even sure now, but something inspired me to ask you about this. This week, yesterday, part of it is we're talking about nations and getting along, and you mentioned something, and when you were talking about Holland and how things change rapidly. Well, yesterday, Obama normalized relations with Cuba. Guys like Marco Rubio, lost their minds, But my personal opinion is that's one of the few things that Obama's done that I actually kind of agreed with. What do you think about that?
I have no thoughts on that subject whatsoever.
Okay. I'll just say this because it kind of ties into what we're talking about. Because to me, look, those guys are 90 miles away from us. We've had no relationship with them for decades now, and where's it gotten us? It hasn't really gotten us anything. So I don't know. I'm a bit of a libertarian. I will take trade over isolation.
Sure.
And I think it's better to keep them involved with us in a commercial way than to have them 90 miles away and in bed with Russia. So I don't know. When that happened yesterday, I was like, you know what? I'm not a huge Obama fan, I'll admit. But that was
changed the cigar market a little bit.
It changed the cigar market. To me, it was actually, it makes sense to me. I mean, it really hasn't gotten us anything by not dealing with them. So I thought that was actually a step in the right direction. And what do they say? Know your friends, know your enemies better, something to that effect. But I thought that was a step in the right direction, because to simply just not deal with them just seems to be counterproductive, and we need solutions right now. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Parker. This has been the Electric Pyramid. We've been talking to Stefan Verstappen about his recent article for Gerald Salente's Trends Journal, which is Historical Cycles, Are We Doomed to Repeat the Past? He has a video on YouTube, which also is the article, accompanied by some beautiful images. Stefan, that was really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed that today. I put that on my Facebook page as well to share with people. I hope they will check it out.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm glad you saw the humor in that. I try to put it in there a little bit because, you still have to have a sense of humor with all this.
Absolutely.
We're fighting, Mordor here.
Yes, we are.
Really up at it. It's kind of a battle between good and evil. It's bizarre, but so you look at it and you think, you see all that's wrong in the world, but you have to keep your sense of humor. I think it keeps you sane. So I try to include a little bit of humor in what I do.
Well, I call that the sweet pill, because you can hit people over the head with something. You can give them the bitter pill; they'll just spit it out. But if you can slip it in the sweet pill, sometimes it goes down a little easier. And yes, your humor, in particular, when the fat lady sings, I just busted out laughing because. And then one of your other videos at one point, I don't remember which video it was, but there was a picture of Dick Cheney that came up with some accompanying narrative. It was very funny. So I encourage people to go out there and check it out. Stefan, tell us all of your websites and how people can find out more about you.
Well, my website is chinastrategies.com, one word. And you can find everything there, all my books and videos. On YouTube, just Google my name. You'll find all the videos there on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook, Stefan Verstappen, and you can friend me. That's fine. I accept all friends. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Chinastrategies.com and YouTube. Yeah.
What's next for you, Stefan?
Well, there's a lot. I just finished doing my book, Chinese Business Etiquette. It's going into the second printing. They're wanting to issue a revised edition for 2015. So I said, okay, great. I have to produce 30% new material for the book. So I did a lot of research on China. Oh, my God, It's going to be bad here, but it's going to be worse for them, those poor people. But my next book is The Community Survival Plan, how to, organize a group of people to work together. And it goes down step by step, minute by minute, what you should do when things get rough and how to organize, including cooperation agreements that you can sign, how to incorporate as a nonprofit. You can do that now, incorporate a small group as a nonprofit organization, and then any money that you spend on getting ready for, you want to buy some extra food and equipment, tax deduction, Mm-hmm. So that'll be the next book. I'm also working on an article on the warrior ethic, the time for warriors, because I think that's what we need to return to. We have to defend ourselves and our families from the intellectual onslaught as well, and then also possibly the physical. So I want to try to reinstill that or write something about that. And I think I'm going to finish off my book that I've been working on for 20 years. I don't know. Have you guys read the science fiction book Dune?
I hate saying this. I didn't get all the way through it. When I was a kid, I was a huge science fiction fan. I started it. I never finished it. I'm embarrassed to say. No
problem. But there was a concept, of the B'nai Gesserit, and they had this book that would train you to be, and the same thing in the martial arts. There's always this legend that there's this great master book that is passed down from master to succeeding master that contains all the secrets of to become not only a great warrior, but enlightened and a master of the world kind of thing.
Yes.
So there is no such book out there. I've looked for it. Robert W. Smith, one of the greatest writers and researchers on martial arts history, himself spent many years in China looking for a book. He found one, which he published, but it's pretty pathetic. I've read it. It's okay, but just plagiarized some Taoist stuff, and so there's no book out there. But I was always intrigued by that idea. This is the book that not only would teach you to be the greatest warrior on earth, but will also, teach you how to train your mind and your body and your intellect, and so that you can survive any situation and read people and detect lies and even see into the future. So I've been working on writing that book, but from a scientific point of view, I'm not a mythicist. If somebody talks about ESP or kind of trying to see into the future, I will look to see if there's some sort of scientific explanation for that. And what I have done and what I've found out is, for a lot of that stuff, the meditation, the Zen, the martial arts philosophies, actually there is really some very solid scientific evidence to back up that stuff really works. So I've been working on it for 20 years. I think I'm going to finally publish it, but it is like the ultimate guide to the way of the warrior. Everything from battle tactics to how to train your eyes, to how to train your balance, to how to become a leader and tactics of leadership, and how to give commands, and how to infiltrate a group, how to subvert a group, how to create a group, how to fluctuate and through society. Anyways, if you've read the book Dune, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the B'nai Gesserit training manual. But and it's also the martial arts, the black book of martial arts, the ultimate source of all wisdom for that. So I'm almost done.
Well, Stefan, that's one thing I like about you. You set lofty, honorable goals, and I admire that. This book sounds magnificent. I don't know how you'll finish it. It sounds pretty great.
Yeah, I've got about 400 pages, and I just have to compile it now, and maybe update it from stuff. Some of the notes are, 25 years old. I've been working on this for a long time, but it's also, I've been working on my path for a long time. I've always been trying to find ways of becoming more aware and more effective, experiencing life to the max kind of thing. So I think. Listen, it's not going to be the ultimate, but there is nothing out there right now, and this book will be good for anybody that's really interested in following the path of a warrior to master all those types of skills.
Well, I look forward to it, and I wish you luck. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Parker. You have been listening to the 27th episode of The Electric Pyramid. Thank you to our guest, Stefan Verstappen. Stefan, as wonderful as it's always wonderful to speak with you, and I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I consider you a friend, even though we've never gotten to meet in person, but I look forward to many more conversations with you.
No, you are one of my soul brother. You and Joe. I have great affection for both you guys. I know we haven't met, but I know we're on the same wavelength, and
indeed,
we're brothers in arms.
Indeed.
Well, man, I hope you have a great holiday, and in 2015, we're going to get you back on ASAP. And so, thank you for coming on again, Joe. Thank you for your help as always to my audience. I thank you for tuning in and listening. If you did not listen, this show would have no meaning. So I appreciate you spending these late hours of the evening with us or the early morning. My name is Michael Parker. This has been The Electric Pyramid. Till next time, triangulate the truth. Happy holidays, whatever your particular religious faith or non-faith is. And I'll speak to you soon. Good night.